Although we're discussing Labour this show, we also have to discuss the Tories, because I don't know if you've noticed, there is a leadership race on. Robert Jenrick, who is in some polls leading that race, he's the candidate and indeed the MP for Newark, joins me now from our Paddington studio. Mr. Jenrick, lovely to see you this morning. You've been making a little bit of a splash in the Sunday Telegraph because you're talking about the types of people who are coming in on small boats. Tell me about the thrust of that piece.
Of terror suspects who are breaking into our country on small boats, coming into here illegally. These are people who are linked to serious terror organizations like Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. And we need to tackle this. I fought relentlessly within government to address this. And that is one of the reasons why I believe we now need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, because we will not be able to remove these people from our country, people who are posing a serious risk to the public, unless we do so.
I mean, people watching and listening to this, Mr. Jenrick, will say it's all well and good that you're saying that, but actually this has happened under the Tories' watch. This happened over the course of the last 14 years. People have often been scratching their heads, wondering why on earth terror suspects and criminals can come here and not face instant deportation.
I agree, Camilla. You know, there are dozens of dangerous terror suspects in our country who we need to remove. There are over 1,000 illegal migrants who are on our registers for other serious criminality, and we need to get these people out of our country. I argued when I was in government relentlessly that we needed to take the most robust action. That was the reason why I argued for a strengthened version of the Rwanda policy, whereby people who come here illegally would be removed within days, not weeks or months or years, that we should end the merry-go-round of legal claims that is preventing us from removing those people. It's ultimately the reason why I decided to resign from the cabinet at the turn of the year, because I wasn't able to persuade the then Prime Minister to take the action that was necessary, and I left government so I could change the law to stop this, so we could disapply the European Convention on Human Rights, and we can get these dangerous people out of the country and keep the public safe. Now we have a Prime Minister in Keir Starmer whose first act was, rather than strengthening Rwanda like I wanted, was to scrap it. And I'm frankly sickened by that, because that is putting the public in danger. And we've got to hold him to account for the decisions that he's making.
All right, let's just work on a hypothetical here. Robert Jenrick wins the Tory leadership race, becomes the leader of the opposition. Come 2029, by some miracle, the Conservatives win the election, but probably only with a small minority. Okay, you're then going to have to persuade the One Nationers that are still in the Tory party that leaving the ECHR is a good idea. You're going to have to legislate for that. Many prime ministers before you have made all sorts of promises about immigration and tens of thousands, and that's just legal, right? You're dealing with illegal immigration. But why won't you face exactly the same opposition that has been inside the heart of many Tory battles for the last 2 decades? Why will you make any difference at all?
Well, firstly, that's one of the reasons why I've taken the decision to set out this information today, because I think the public and those in politics need to know how serious this situation is. If we remain within the European Convention on Human Rights, we will not be able to tackle this issue. There will be terror suspects on our streets for years and decades to come, and people will be put in great danger. People will die as a result of that, as they have already with terror attacks, for example, in Reading and Hartlepool and London Bridge. We've got to end that. But within the Conservative Party, I actually see that things are changing. There is now a consensus that the ECHR is failing us, and some are saying that we need to reform it. In fact, everyone agrees that at the least it needs to be reformed. What I'm saying is that's not possible. I have studied this, I have a plan, and it's clear to me that there is no way to reform this. That would be a project of decades. There's no way in which we could do that. It would be as doomed to failure, Camilla, as David Cameron's well-intentioned attempt to renegotiate our membership of the EU years ago. We need to get on and leave, and I would take us out. The good news is that if you look at the members of Parliament who are supporting my campaign, they're coming from all parts, all traditions within the Conservative Party, and that suggests that we're winning this argument.
Okay, but what about the criticism of you that you haven't really been fighting any of these battles for very long? Where were you 10 years ago on some of these issues? You were quite busy voting for Remain and being a member of the establishment. You were nicknamed Robert Jenrick because you didn't really stand for anything. And now you're throwing all of this red meat around like you're somehow trying to channel your inner Nigel Farage. You're never going to out-Farage. You haven't got a reputation in the past for being this strident righty. So people are looking at you thinking you're just being a political opportunist.
Look, this isn't about aping reform, far from it. I want the Conservative Party to be the serious party of British politics, which is bringing forward the serious answers to the big challenges that we face, like on illegal and legal migration. And people can look at my record. They know that I fought relentlessly to reform our legal migration system and personally secured the biggest changes in years that will reduce the number of people coming into our country by 300,000 a year. And they knew that I fought to strengthen the Rwanda bill alongside 60 colleagues that would have stopped the boats. And they also can see that I stood up on principle. I was the only one, frankly, who chose to resign on a matter of principle of honour in the last Parliament, of all those who served in Cabinet. That shows that I stand for my principles and I want to make this Conservative Party better. I want to, if we're lucky enough to re-enter government in the future, address these issues once and for all.
All right, well, you did resign in the last Parliament, but a couple of parliaments before that, when you were Housing Minister, Boris Johnson sacked you in the reshuffle of September 2021. Why did he do that?
Well, you'd have to ask Boris, but he himself has acknowledged that it was a mistake to row back on the planning reforms that we were developing at the time. They would have helped hundreds of thousands of young people onto the housing ladder, created thousands of jobs and a lot of economic growth that was needed in this country. And that's one of the other things that I want to do. I want to get people back onto the housing ladder. I think that that is a fundamentally conservative thing, and it's important that we do that. Of course, we need to do it in our big cities rather than carpeting over the countryside and the green belt. But we've got to address that. I was right to address it at the time, and it will be part of a future Conservative government's agenda when we next come to power.
I know, but why should anyone believe you when you say that we should be building more homes when you were Housing Minister, you didn't achieve the government's 300,000 target? The Tories kept on undershooting it, and you were in post, right?
Camilla, I'm afraid that's wrong. When I was Housing Secretary, I brought the number of new homes being built in this country up to the highest level since Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister. In fact, the highest level since 1987. It fell back significantly when I left office. So my record on housing is the best of any Housing Secretary in recent decades. And I want us to get back to those levels again, because I think it is so important that we give young people a stake in society. That is a fundamentally conservative principle.
Well, if you were so great, why did Boris Johnson sack you? I mean, the former Prime Minister hated sacking people. He didn't like telling people they were out of office. In fact, he should have sacked a few people, including Dominic Cummings, sooner. So why did he sack you if you were so great as Housing Secretary?
Look, I don't know, Camilla. You'd have to ask him. But look, my record as Housing Secretary is there for everyone to see.
What did he give you at the time?
My record is there for everyone to see. I fought to get the number of homes being built in this country right up there to the highest levels they've been in my lifetime. And I want to see that happen again in the future.
Okay.
Look, people can see, Camilla, that when I've been in government, I've always taken difficult decisions. I've always fought for solutions to the big challenges facing our country, whether it's to reform the planning system to get the country building again, whether it's slashing red tape for small businesses when I was Community Secretary, or whether as Immigration Minister, getting down legal migration for the first time, tackling the boats, signing deals like the one with Albania that led to an almost 40% reduction in the numbers coming across. Those numbers started to rise again as soon as I resigned. And then obviously fighting for us to have a sustainable solution to the small boats crisis with a stronger Rwanda policy that would have stopped those boats and would have put this country in a much better place to tackle all of the harms that are coming as a result of legal migration.
Your Sunday Telegraph piece comes after a piece you wrote in the week in the Daily Mail, which got a little bit of traction because you found it hard to define what Englishness is in the week. I think you were interviewed by one of our rival channels. What is Englishness as far as you're concerned?
No, Camilla, I didn't find it hard to describe Englishness at all. In fact, I was surprised that one of your rival channels even asked me the question. No one would ask a Welshman or a Scotsman or a Frenchman to define what is Welsh or Scottish or French identity. My point was that national identity comes from our history, our language, our food, our landscapes, our literature. And I think we can all point to things that we love about this country. What I think what I was trying to say in that article was that far too often do English politicians talk about English identity. It's perfectly normal for a prominent Scottish or Welsh politician to celebrate Scottish or Welsh identity. But in England, somehow it's anathema. And that's got to change. I think English identity is in peril right now. And that's partly because our kids are not being taught it in our schools. It's the institutions, like our museums and the guardians of our culture, are too quick to denigrate it. And it's also because mass migration, particularly focused on England and English cities, is making it too difficult to integrate people into our identity. And I want to change that. I want to start a national conversation about how we celebrate and we protect English identity and we hand it on to our own children and grandchildren.
When's the last time you visited the National Portrait Gallery?
Oh, I went there recently. I took my kids there a few months ago. I love that gallery. I love showing them.
Well, it's full of portraits
English,
of past, English kings and queens and other notables. So, I mean, the arts does celebrate Britishness and Englishness, doesn't it?
No, well, actually, I think that there's a real problem in this country that a lot of people, whether it's in politics, in the media, in our cultural institutions, do not want to talk about English identity in particular. In fact, they frown at that sometimes. And they think that, you know, the flag of St. George is associated with the far right. Well, I want to reclaim those things. I want it to be perfectly normal for an English politician to be talking about our own national identity. I think that's really important. Or else, the real danger in our politics, Camilla, is that we leave those things to the far right. And that's wrong. It should be a mainstream view that we can talk about our own identity, which is so important to us as a country. We should be handing it on to the next generation intact.
Speaking about patriots and people who have got a very strong sense of national identity, Donald Trump. The last time we spoke, Mr. Jenrick, you said that you would support Trump if you had a vote in the US. Do you still support him after he commented in the recent debate against Camilla Harris, in Springfield they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets of the people that live there?
Look, I obviously don't agree with everything that Donald Trump says and does, but as a Conservative, you know, our party has long links with the Republican Party, so it's natural that we would lean that way. But this is ultimately a decision for the American people. And I respect Kamala Harris, and this is clearly going to be a tight race. And if I was lucky enough to lead the Conservative Party in the future after November, I would obviously look to work with whoever is President of the United States.
OK. What pressure are you willing to bear on Labour over Donegate? I spoke to Bridget Phillipson earlier and asked whether Rachel Reeves needed to be investigated by the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner for claiming that money that was donated to her to pay for dresses was actually office expenses. Miss Phillipson didn't seem to think there was anything wrong with that, but it did pique my interest because I think if I had tried to claim the dress I'm wearing now, which, by the way, I paid for in my tax return, as an office expense, I might run into trouble.
Yeah, well, look, firstly, I think this is pathetic. This opposition had 14 years to prepare for government, and now they are there. This is all that they can do, squabbling over staff and salaries and dresses and stays in luxury apartments in New York.
Who should investigate this, though, Mr. Jenrick?
There are serious issues that belie this, beyond just the hypocrisy. There are issues about parliamentary standards. And I'm sure this will be something that the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner will be looking into now. But the main thing is that this Labour government is so fresh, but it already looks stale. This is behaving like they've been in power for years, and yet it's only been 11 weeks. We need to be holding them to account. And that's what I want to do if I'm lucky enough to lead this party, holding Keir Starmer and this failing Labour government to account.
Mr. Jenrick, thank you very much indeed for joining me this morning, and good luck in the leadership race.